Hi, I'm Malika Bilal, and you're in the stream.
And I'm Femi OK. We hope that you're enjoying the stream's road trip this week. We are at Al Jazeera English's headquarters, right here in Doha, Qatar. And our colleagues have let us borrow this studio. You might recognise it. It's the Inside Story studio. We have transformed it to the stream on the road to celebrate our network's 10th anniversary.
And today we're discussing how Qatar is taking steps to boost the country's breastfeeding rates. You can join the conversation with hashtag AJStream.
My baby is now 6 weeks old, and I was having trouble breastfeeding, so I resorted to bottle feeding with a mixture of breast, but predominantly bottle.
Breastfeeding is a common struggle for a lot of mothers, but health experts say that it's the best nutrition for babies. Qatar's Ministry of Health reports that roughly 29% of Qatari women exclusively breastfeed for the first 6 months of their babies' lives. They're hoping to boost that number dramatically. The ministry is drafting a law to do just that. The proposed law would ban ads for baby formula, forbid doctors from giving out samples or attending medical conferences that are sponsored by infant milk companies.
But the effort to boost breastfeeding rates is not just about cracking down on formula use. Public perceptions around breastfeeding must also change if the law is going to be effective. So how is Qatar changing the conversation around maternal-child health? Joining us to discuss that in the studio, we have Dr. Mohammed Verji. He's an associate professor of family medicine at Weill Cornell Medicine here in Qatar. Next to him, also in the studio, Dr. Ahmed Abu Bakr. She's the lead lactation consultant at Hamad Women's Hospital in Doha.
And via Skype from Doha, Farhana Habib. She's the head of public relations for Sidra Medical and Research Centre. And in London, Victoria Scott. She's editor-at-large for Doha News and is written extensively about this topic. It's good to have you here, everybody. Welcome. It's lovely to have you. Where shall we start, Malika?
With something on my laptop. This is a video we got. We've heard from lots of moms here in Doha, and here's just one of them. This is Francis, who explains why breastfeeding may not be that popular.
Hi, I'm Fran Rivers. I'm a lactation leader here in Qatar, and I want to discuss some factors that I see why some women may choose not to breastfeed in Qatar. And these include the common practice of hospitals separating mom and baby after birth. This can lead to difficulties with breastfeeding in the future. I hear stories of formula being given to baby before they are offered the breast, and sometimes without parental consent. And thirdly, that I hear from moms that wish that healthcare professionals had more training and support on the best practices of healthy breastfeeding.
Victoria, can you relate to any of those things? She listed a few things right there, separating mums and babies. Can you relate to any of them?
All of those things. I had 2 babies in Qatar, and both times I had lots of problems establishing breastfeeding, but the first time in particular, and that's because of a lot of things that happen. But for example, as soon as you've had your baby, it's very common here for the nurses to take the baby to the nursery so you can have some rest. And in doing so, you are separating your baby for the first several hours of its life. You don't get the time for bonding, you don't get the skin to skin, and then in my case, the nurses also told me that my baby was starving, hungry, and that was why he was crying and needed a bottle. And I told them I wanted to breastfeed, but I was a new mum and I was petrified that I was doing him harm. And so I let them.
Dr. Mohammed, is that an unusual story in Qatar?
I'm afraid it's not. This is all too common. I think there's an answer, though. There's an answer that should be perceived really early, and that is not actually to consider this separation after birth. It should start well before birth. Mothers should be encouraged. They should be, not given the awareness of so many things that can happen. Not only bonding and not only good feeding and healthiness of the baby, but really not to be frightened of it at all and not to accept the separation.
So, Dr. Amal, is it the medical staff who are taking the baby away, or is it the mum who's saying, it's okay, I need some rest? I'm trying to think who is setting up this system where the baby doesn't stay with the mum straight away?
As a system, I don't think that in women hospital or in general in the hospital where there is birth centers, we are not separating because it is becoming a policy. But for some reason, because we have to finish training of all the staff, we are starting the training of the staff on management of breastfeeding and benefit of breastfeeding and what practices. And rooming is one of the practices that should be adopted and implemented on our hospital, all our hospital. But those staff, maybe unfortunately, she has met with the staff who are not already accomplished the training. But it is a policy in the hospital, baby should be with the mother unless medically there is a medical reason for separation of the mother.
Right. I'm so glad you said that.
Also,
go ahead.
That my first birth, my son's birth, was in a private hospital in Qatar. My second child was born in a Hamad hospital. And I did notice a difference, and I do think that there have been improvements made. That's my son, who was born in 2010 in a private hospital in Qatar, and on the left there is my daughter, who was born 2 years ago in a Hamad hospital. And I did have more support the second time, although it wasn't perfect.
So I want to pick up on a point, Dr. Amal, that you were making, that it's some of these hospital workers may not have had that training. That's exactly what we heard from several mothers. This is just one comment we received from someone named Yasmin. She says, if Qatar wants to encourage breastfeeding, they need the frontline nursing staff to be informed with up-to-date knowledge and not to be basing their practice on old wives' tales. Here's one of those wives' tales. This is a comment that another commenter that we got. This is Yasmin. She says, I was encouraged immediately to give my baby formula by the nursing staff at the hospital due to the misconception that there isn't enough milk for the first 3 days after birth. And she adds in parentheses there, this is incorrect. Farhana, how do you address concerns like this?
You know, at Sidra, we actually went about doing this campaign to dispel a lot of these myths. There are, you know, I'm actually frankly surprised that that's come from a nurse. The survey that we did amongst a lot of mothers was to get their feedback on what kind of myths or what they hear as common things like my baby will be thirsty, or, you know, I'm not producing enough milk, or maybe we should give the baby some chamomile tea. Yeah. And another popular one was formula milk is as good as breast milk. Yeah. And so part of our efforts with our community relations team was to put out messages to dispel these myths.
Farhana, let's do some of that. Let's do some of that right now, because this is supposed to be an informative show. So here we go. Breastfeeding hurts, doctors?
Not at all.
Says the man in the room.
No.
Doesn't hurt.
It does hurt, because I've had 2 sons of my own, and so I've seen that you support your wife and spouse. It's not so.
All right, breastfeeding doesn't hurt, says the doctor. 1 month of breastfeeding enough, Dr. Amal?
Sorry, can you repeat?
1 month of breastfeeding is enough. That's one of the myths here that are being dispelled. What's an ideal time to breastfeed?
There is no limitation for breastfeeding. There are not specific. Women are supposed to breastfeed at all time.
Right.
And a baby is the one who decides when to breastfeed.
Let me do one more. Victoria, Mum, breastfeeding will disfigure my body shape.
Well, the thing about it not hurting, I mean, I think every woman who's breastfed knows it does sometimes hurt. Yeah. And I think some women might say it does change their body, but I don't feel disfigured, and I've had to.
Right. All right.
You know, dispelling the myths is one thing, but on the other hand, someone wants to remind us, and not just one person, this is Rachel. She says, if you can breastfeed, then absolutely do it. Proven benefits for both mother and baby, but not all women can, unfortunately. So while we're dispelling myths, Dr. Muhammad, can you explain why someone might not be able to, and sometimes there's a sense of shame there. Why is that?
There shouldn't be any shame at all. In fact, a lot of it's a little bit of trial and error right at the beginning. But then if a mother actually has a newborn, it's her first, sometimes there's a problem with latching on of the baby. The baby doesn't latch on properly. It doesn't seem very happy. The mother gets a little bit frustrated, and then after a while, it's also, this is not working. Therefore, but with proper training, guidance, and some pre-delivery advice and help, they can be shown how to enhance that latching, and once they get going, they're off.
Part of what
We
you're
believe that breastfeeding is a learning process. Because the majority of mothers, they think that they know how to breastfeed. And they think that if they put the baby in the breast, he will breastfeed. But there is condition should be followed. A mother should learn either by teaching or by observation. If she is lacking this, if she doesn't know how to hold her baby, if she doesn't know how to the baby to latch to the breast, then she will not be able and the baby will not be satisfied.
You,
Can I comment on that?
yeah, please, Farna.
Yeah,
Please,
thank
yeah, please. And
Just-
Victoria.
Just.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So I think it's very important that you know, when situations like that happen, I think it's really important that as a family and as a community, you know, that mothers get this kind of support. And a lot of moms, they leave the hospital immediately afterwards, and I think there really needs to be consideration in terms of follow-up care. I had my child in Australia, and I was part of a community center, and a midwife came to check in on me, was trying to make sure that I was breastfeeding my child. So I think, you know, it's really, really important that we have support systems like this in place for a lot of for mothers. And I understand that is one of the reasons why a lot of mothers, you know, sort of gave up on breastfeeding after they left the hospital, because, you know, they just felt that they didn't have the support. And obviously, if it's the first child in the family, no one else really could guide them.
Victoria, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to pick up on that, but also about the education beforehand, and I completely agree with you on that, Doctor. There isn't any. We didn't have classes. In the UK, I'd have probably gone to antenatal classes, preparation classes. There were none. And then after I was discharged from hospital, both times, apart from checkups about 1 or 2 weeks after the birth, post-operative checkups and vaccine checkups for my baby, there was no contact with a medical professional or a lactation consultant. And I sought out, the first time I only succeeded with breastfeeding because I sought out a British midwife who was living in Qatar to come and help, and I paid her privately, and I wouldn't have managed otherwise.
Can I come in on that and say, particularly your point about not having enough milk right at the beginning? Right at the beginning, there isn't actually the appearance of fizzle milk, if you like. There's a word they use called colostrum. But that actually is very, very rich and very, very important. And that's the adjustment before the full milk comes in for the baby to feed. It's nutritious, it's hydrating, and it carries something that people perhaps don't always realize, antibodies. Antibodies, in fact, passive immunity from the mother to the baby over a period of time, not just a few days, but over a period of 6 months or a year, can actually confirm protection against diseases, against bacteria, against viruses, keep a baby healthier, keep it actually really on course, as opposed to formula. Formula's not wrong in that sense, but breast is better. It's better. It's got everything. It's got fat, it's got protein, it's got vitamins. What more could you ask for? And it's on tap, effectively. It can be on demand. And the baby may feed something like, 10, 12, 14 times a day, every 2 hours perhaps there. And a mother may be breastfeeding for, say, 10 or 20 minutes on each side. That seems like a lot. But let's not forget the bonding part of it too there. If everything's going well, that's unique.
So I hear what you're saying there, but some people online are telling us that there's still a culture that's not encouraging that. So this is one experience. This is Anne. She says the same thing happens in Kuwait, but it's gotten better recently. There are many women who have maids, and they can then hand the baby to their maids to feed. So they're not doing that bonding. Dr. Amel, is this something you've seen, and how do you go about changing that? Does it need to be changed?
I think there is a change going on. I believe that there is a change going on. I believe that majority of mothers, they started to know. But there are misconceptions about breastfeeding. Mothers are affected by their mothers and their grandmothers, and they are affected by their husbands themselves. Unfortunately, here we have no chance to accept the husband. The husband is playing a very big role here. But unfortunately, we are not educating the husband. So this is why I think that they are not doing it.
What education does the husband need?
I think husband, he should know equally about the importance of breastfeeding. He should know about the practice that will help mother, because mother needs the support. In the past, mothers, they are living with their families. Now they are living with husband, especially for the first 3 to 4 weeks. Breastfeeding, really, it is not an easy job. It needs time. It needs confidence. It needs support. If the mother, she is lacking this, she always is down. I saw mothers who came to me crying because they are not able to breastfeed their baby. When we put the baby in the right positioning and helping her, she starts kissing us because now she thinks that she's not competent. She's not a good mother. But by training and by building her their confidence, by showing them how they know that their baby is satisfied, how their baby, she knows that their baby has taken enough milk, they will be happy and they will be able to do.
How do they find you? How do they find the clinic? How do they find help?
Yeah, in Women Hospital, as well as in Al Khor Hospital and Al Wakra Hospital, we created recently, it is not an old thing, we created recently or we established a breastfeeding clinic. In this clinic, we are addressing 2 groups. We are addressing the pregnant woman. So we are educating women during antenatal classes, okay, or as individual, one by one, or as a group. Also mother after discharge, because they stay 1 to 2 days in the hospital, and always the problem started after discharge, after these 3 days. So we are informing all mothers on discharge. If she has any difficulties, she had to come to our clinic, which is open daily from 9 o'clock to 11:30.
And they say there are no ads on Al Jazeera, but that's a good one. That's a PSA ad. That's fine. I will allow that.
It is. Well,
Can I interject?
I just want to play this video comment because it's a good one. She has her baby with her, but we've been hearing the word support. We need support. We need support. This is an idea from someone named Carmen Maria who spoke to the stream. This is what she said about that.
I had Grace about a year ago at the Cuban hospital, and the nurses there were super supportive of showing me how to breastfeed. But once I left the hospital, that was the only support that I had, so I didn't have anybody to go to speak to about those type of things like mastitis or anything like that. I often went to the group positive birth Doha for help. So I think that there are a lot of ways that we could be helped more.
So Victoria, she mentioned one support group. Were there others that you found that you could find what you needed when you needed it most?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I really wished I'd had that support at the time. That sounds brilliant. When I was just cast out at sea, I was completely lost. I was fairly new in the country. I just rang up someone I knew who ran a mums group, and she knew someone who was a midwife who'd literally just arrived in the country, and she caught a cab and came across town, and she didn't know where she was or anything about the hospital, and came and saved me. But I do wish, you seem like a wonderful lady, and I wish I'd been able to come to you. It was a very difficult time, and I was that woman crying because she couldn't feed her baby, and it's horrible. You need someone to help you. But the thing about husbands as well is that in Women's Hospital, Hamad Women's, and all the state hospitals apart from the Cuban hospital in Qatar, husbands cannot be at the birth of their baby, so they can't support the women during labour, and also can't attend doctor's appointments at the women's hospital, routine appointments, and probably can't come into the breastfeeding clinic. So it is a problem because I only have my husband. My parents were thousands of miles away, and he couldn't come with me, and I think that is a problem for women like me.
Yeah. That's what I said. Yeah. Exactly, I agree with you.
I think we mustn't forget. I mean, breastfeeding is one thing, but you mustn't forget the benefits to both mother and baby. And in fact, I think mothers sometimes worry about that because they sort of say, well, you know, am I going to get fat or whatever? But breastfeeding itself, in fact, uses up calories. They can lose weight. Not only that, they can actually probably reduce chances of obesity. They can protect their bones and have a less of a chance of developing osteoporosis. So it's a win-win situation for that.
Let me play you something. This is from the Hamad Medical Corporation. There's a real push right now to say breastfeeding is the best if you're able to do it. So let me show you part of that push. Have a look at this.
مبروك المولود. سأضع مولودك على صدرك لمدة ساعة، فهذا يحفز الدماغ فيزيد إنتاج حليبك الأصفر اللدئ. وارضعي طفلك فور ولادته وباستمرار. ضميني لصدرك، فهذا يعطيني شعورا بالحب وينظم دقات قلبي وتنفسي وحرارة جسمي.
I think you get the idea about encouraging families, women to breastfeed. Malika?
And it's the government initiative that is being appreciated online, but then what comes after? So this is a comment we got from Zaina, who's Qatari. She says, sadly, in Qatar, the issue is maternity leave. I'm lucky because my work has a nursing room and I intend to pump. I can't imagine what others are going through. So we actually got a comment from someone via video who talks about how that could be changed. This is Amber Smith. She talks about how to make baby-friendly spaces, hospitals, and other areas. Here's what she told us.
In regards to many women choosing not to breastfeed, many women have to go back to work or they have to return back to their studies. I'm an educator, so a lot of women in our institution they come back to school. So we do have a breastfeeding room. We're currently renovating it, and we're also striving towards being a baby-friendly university. This builds from the baby-friendly hospital initiative that's going on at HMC.
Farhana, how do we go about making every space baby-friendly?
We actually at Sidra, we conducted a study last year, and we asked that very question because we wanted to get an understanding of the challenges a lot of working moms faced who are breastfeeding and they go back to work. And some of the top, comments that came back were the fact that there weren't any rooms for them to pump, they weren't comfortable. There was another reason, of course, being that maternity leaves in Doha are quite short. So I think in terms of making it's very important to listen to moms like this and to get their feedback. It's very important for HR policies to be considered on how can you make your place how can you make it friendly for moms, for working mothers? And some of the recommendations that the mothers came back with were, they wanted nurseries, they wanted a comfortable private room for them to nurse. At Sidra, we now have an outpatient clinic, and we've actually, we've listened to this feedback. We've got 3 breastfeeding rooms, nursing rooms for our female staff, and as the hospital will grow, we're looking into expanding on that. But we're also revising our own policies for our own female staff.
I'm just looking at some of these infographics that you're showing, Sidra, and showing of mothers here in Qatar. There's one here about tips for storing breast milk. What can you do before getting back to work? And then also daily tips for the working breastfeeding mother. There's so much out there. It's like you could almost just look it up and then there's a support system. But is it working? How long will it be before you see more breastfeeding mothers?
People have to perhaps have an awareness about breast milk, for instance. There, if it's pumped and it's expressed, you can keep it in a refrigerator for up to 2 days, and it's perfectly safe. If you actually have so much, you can actually freeze it. And you won't believe how long it actually will last if you deep freeze it. It can last up to 6 months. So there's a huge supply there. And not only that can get involved as well. The one thing you mustn't do is you mustn't just put it in the microwave and blitz it. You have to warm it up gently and thaw it gently. So please don't do that. But it's a very valuable way to give a mother a rest. Continuing breastfeeding during the night, giving her a break. Dad can go down, warm it up, give the baby a feed, and it's the same thing, really.
I have to say, guess you're very persuasive.
Oh,
you're very persuasive, Malika.
And as a policy concerning this issue, we are adopting this issue also in our policy. We are encouraging our nurses to teach all mothers before discharge to be sure that mother she know how to express her milk. She should not. We are giving even free of charge to mother breast pump, manual breast pump, but at the same time, we demonstrate to her before. Unfortunately, I cannot say all mothers. We said all mothers should be, but we are starting our program.
Thank you so much.
We did not finish our training.
Dr. Mohammed, Victoria, and Farhana, thank you for being on this program. Malika?
Ending with Mommy Dill, breastfeeding or formula, a fed baby is the best, as long as the choices are made based on education, information, and support.
Thanks for watching this episode of The Stream. We continue online, always. #AJStream. Take care, everybody.